I think one of the most important things which people have highlighted is that there needs to be more exposure for women leaders' lives, where younger women realize how they did it.
Lots of conversations on how difficult it is to manage Gen Z employees. But people tend to forget when they were 21, 22, they were also as lost then.
I think credit is the only currency that works for a leader to ensure that there is meritocracy, there is fairness.
How did you come out of your comfort zone when you experienced in different industries, and how did that shape as a leader you are today?
If I'm doing the work for the organization and it's great work, and I'm not getting credit for, let's say, a particular assignment, there are 9 others that I would get, credit for.
Actually understanding whether when Gen Z says they want something, are they putting their money where the mouth is, right? And yeah, there have been a lot of studies. Both sides of the argument have been presented.
Headline is that the lazy people will lose their jobs. Okay. Why do I say so? I say so because the lazy people will be the ones who will not get on to learning.
Thank you, Deepali, for making time and talking to us. Another episode of Insightful Exchanges. We are very lucky to get you to talk. So with me and Deepali, there is Bhavi and there's Shubhangi. Very quick round of introductions. Deepali is a dear friend, and Deepali has been an industry leader. Now working with Biocon, I think she can spend 10, 15 seconds explaining what she does and where she comes from. And then Shubhangi and Bhavi can introduce themselves.
Thank you, Sandeep, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure talking to you and taking part in anything that you're putting together. I have spent the last 32 years doing sales, brands, marketing, performance marketing, building corporate reputation at Biocon Biologics. I'm the global head for brand and corporate communications. It's a global mandate. I work for a company called Biocon Biologics, which is a subsidiary of Biocon Limited.
I'm Shubhangi, currently an MBA student at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Prior to that, I worked at LEK Consulting in the education sector for 3 years, and I've recently interned with McKinsey & Company.
Bhavi?
Hi, I am Bhavi. I am a 20-year-old studying in Mumbai, doing my bachelor's in management studies, and a curious marketer to know more about marketing.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So let's rock on. And Shubhangi, first question from you.
Deepali, I think Sandeep mentioned you're an industry leader, and of course, you've been at IBM, Mahindra Holidays, CK Birla Group, and now Biocon. So, what core leadership principle has remained non-negotiable for you across these industries?
I think the way I have looked at leadership has been 3 different elements. One is, what is a win-win for the company that I'm working for? And that is building their brand. And the core of that has always, for me, been the customer, consumer, different cohorts, that you can call customer, consumer influencers. Understanding them, having insights on them, knowing what moves them in their lives, and then fitting in the brand that you're working on into their lives or the product that you're working on into their lives. I think that is a win-win for the corporation, that I'm working for always. Number 2 is a personal principle. And the personal principle for me in leadership is what goes around comes back. So pay it forward. You pay forward, especially in a corporate context, by being extremely ethical with credit. I call it credit. What does credit mean? This is a personal principle, which means that if somebody is doing something great for the organization, that person should get the credit. That could be my boss, that could be me, that could be a member of my team, or a very, very junior person. I think credit is the only currency that works for a leader to ensure that there is meritocracy, there is fairness, teams work for you and for the organization that you're working for. So I think that is the second principle. The third one is, I want everybody to be happy around me. I spend most of my waking time I once calculated and I realized that I spend 80% of my waking time with my work colleagues, either talking to them on the phone or doing a video call or reading their emails. But 80% of the waking time is being spent with them as a leader, especially. And that means I want happy people around me. I want positive people around me. So I think that's the third thing that I look for. I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, Shubhangi. No management funda here, but this is what I have to say.
Yeah, I think even if it's not a management funda, I think the way you conduct yourself, especially a personal principle, is very important. And just maybe a follow up to that, I'm sure, such an extensive career has not come without its challenges. So for you, what was the toughest inflection point in your 30-year career? And how did you reskill to stay relevant?
Think so. You followed it up with two questions. How did I reskill myself?
Right.
So to the second part of the question, you don't need to reskill yourself specifically. I think you reskill and you learn all the time. In fact, I wrote an article on LinkedIn a couple of years back about learning quotient. And you should read that article. You need to be continually learning, and therefore you will never need to reskill yourself specifically and reach that challenge point that you can solve it by reskilling. I'm not saying you don't go to a classroom. In fact, I say go to a classroom, read from books, learn from others, continuously do something, but do it. But now let me come back to the question that you asked first, which is that challenges, that I've faced. I think challenges are of a very, very different nature when you reflect on a 32-year, career span. Challenges are about the fact that sometimes both at work and in your personal life, there is a stretch. You know, I always say this that sometimes, you have a stretch at work, but your personal life is going great. You will not feel the stretch. Sometimes your personal life, you are stretched, and work life, is going well. You will not feel the stretch. You feel the stretch when both of them are going through certain periods. And, I'm not referring to, I'm being a woman leader. I want to specially specify it's not about having a child and bringing them up. I mean, my dad went through cancer. My mother wasn't well for an extended period. These are the stretches, in your personal life that anybody faces. Of course, bringing up a child, parenting is important, but there I think my husband and my family equally contributed to parenting my child. I call him a community child in that sense. My brother has contributed. My mom and my dad, while he was alive, have contributed to bringing him up. Uh, so that is a challenge that I've faced. And when I faced those challenges, I've had to make choices. There was a period in 2016 when I was off work for about 10 months. I took a break. There was a period in 2005 when I was off work for a year. The other challenges that I faced is that sometimes the growth in my career would have come by moving cities. I think that's when both my husband and I have taken a call to stay back as a family unit together in the early parts of our career and life. We don't know where our careers would have taken us, but so be it. But interestingly, now that our son has gone off to college, we are empty nesters. And now both of us have taken a call to get out of Bombay City.
Bhavi?
Okay. Yeah. So I would want to tell that I know that you've led diverse teams across industries from travel to technology to healthcare. What's one principle you have held on to that has guided every career decisions you have made up till now?
I think the principle that has guided my career decisions have been about the fact that will this new assignment allow me learn and to add value back to the organization that I'm working. I think those are the two variables that I look at while making a future career decision. There have been times when people have offered me jobs that I have said no to. And if I look back, I think these were the two reasons. Either I felt that I wouldn't be able to add value, or I felt that I'd be repeating myself and I wouldn't learn anything. That's a very risky strategy though. But I think that's the reason that every job change of mine, I'm one of those absolutely rare ones. People now openly tell me this, that I don't think there's anybody in India who has a career where she has changed categories with every job. So I have moved from automobiles to mobile phones. to advertising, to cookie coils, and then to asset management, and then to general insurance, then to a holiday company, and then to a wealth management company, then to technology. And then I've gone and worked for a group which was into fertility clinics and hospitals and building construction material and paper and consumer durables. And now I'm here at pharma. Somebody else made me realize this, not me. They counted and they said, well, actually, when I was joining here, when they were writing my introduction, somebody counted and said that, you probably worked in about 23 different categories, Deepali, over your lifetime.
We are kind of digressing, but I have two questions to you on what you said. So you make it sound very nice and you make it sound, but there are two things which do happen in the industry, which is managing your bosses and people stealing your credits. And that's the thing. How does one tackle that? And especially for these 20, 25, 23-year-olds, how does one tackle that when you're at the receiving end of somebody stealing credit or only managing the top bosses and not really caring for their teams?
Sandeep, you have to believe in what I said, pay it forward, what goes around comes around. I think it's extremely important for us to be good human beings in our lifetime. What is the basic philosophy that, I have at least lived with? It's not necessary that credit needs to come to me from the exact person that I'm doing a favor. Just look at the philosophy of pay it forward, right? I help another human being. It's not necessary that a helping hand is given back to me from that same person. I need
True.
a helping hand when I need it, right? So similarly, if I'm doing the work for the organization and it's great work, and I'm not getting credit for, let's say, a particular assignment, there are 9 others that I would get, credit for. And even if I don't, I think this will just come back to me to build the goodwill in some other manner. I think that's the basic principle in my head, which is let me be calm and not be transactional about, 1 or 2 episodes.
That's a very profound thought. It's really profound thought.
I don't think I was like this when I was, a 30-year-old. I don't think I was like this even when I was, I think, a 35-year-old. But I think somewhere along the way, you start looking at what is happening to people around you. You start looking at people's lifetimes, by the time they work for 15, 20 years. And I think once you do that, things start making sense to you.
Okay. What is going to happen with AI impacting marketing and marketing jobs and advertising jobs in India? What would win, AI or the people?
Okay. The provocative headline is that the lazy people will lose their jobs. Okay. Why do I say so? I say so because the lazy people will be the ones who will not get on to learning what AI is all about and how it can make a difference to their lives and how to improve their productivity and efficiency. And therefore, they will also not know how to deploy, AI in an enterprise context. Okay, jokes apart, I think what will happen is that every person at every level today in the marketing hierarchy is not seen to be doing the same job. What has happened on account of hierarchy is that the seniors are doing only strategy and thinking, and the junior most layer is doing only execution, and the middle layer is doing both. I may be oversimplifying, but that's what's happening. What AI is definitely doing to all of us individually is giving us a very strong execution ability, which means that slowly the environment and the ecosystem around you, especially if you're a senior person who was only used to doing thinking, will have the ability to execute at lightning speed and therefore will be expected to execute. I think that's one difference that's going to happen. Similarly, I think the challenge is going to be for the younger folks who will need to learn very fast, lots of different principles and experiences for them to be able to think strategically and then execute. So I think that's the difference in the way I look at how skilling inside organization will change. Maybe we'll have a lot more flatter organizations, therefore. And I'm only commenting about marketing here. The other change that will happen is that the kind of people we interact with in our ecosystem might change. So the structure of the agencies might change. We may not have the kind of large agencies that we have today. We might have very different kind of shops who may be servicing the needs of what marketing teams require.
In fact, sorry, question leading to that, especially in a digital, and digital seems to be everywhere and everybody wants to think only digital. There are negatives and positives. We'll come to the negatives. But what about people like Meta and Google actually offering to do your advertising, saying that we will design your banners and we'll design your digital campaigns and we'll give, how would it impact the rest of the agency world and the marketing world?
Um, Sandeep, I'm surprised at this question getting asked, not by you, but by many others, because I reflected. And what used to happen, just think about it. There was a point of time when my media plan used to have only television, print, and outdoor. Okay. Then television got bifurcated. And, instead of the general entertainment channels came in only news channels. And we didn't know how to handle them. And the news channels came and said that, don't worry, Deepali, if you don't have a creative, I'll build a creative for you. I'll give you the vignettes. Okay. Then came digital outdoor. They also came and said, don't worry, Deepali, your agency may not know how to give us the creatives. You give the campaign to us, we will build it. So this is not an unknown principle, Sandeep. Even 10 years ago, the performance marketing channels, the affiliates who ran your ads, people who got you the leads, right? Your own team sitting over there, the one who used to run the campaign and the SEO, didn't know creative. They took the creative from the left hand, took it from the right hand, and started running the material. So I'm not surprised. There are a lot of people who will come and say, you don't know how to do community building, we'll help you do it. Right? But I'm not so concerned about whether it is Meta or Google. It could be ChatGPT tomorrow because searches are now moving to ChatGPT. There was a point of time when we used to, with wonder in our eyes, used to say YouTube is the third largest search engine. Then YouTube became the second largest search engine. Now ChatGPT is in our search results. We're actually seeing searches or visits to our website coming in from the AI engines. So I'm therefore, this doesn't surprise me because I've seen this in the last 30 years. So the only thing that has changed in my lifetime in marketing is that new things used to happen maybe every 5-6 years earlier. Now they happen every 5-6 months.
Okay. If you're following AI regularly and working on it, which I am, then new things happen every 3 days. So some new thing happens. Very light question, and I know your answer, but I still ask it for a reason. Would you prefer to, if you have a task at your hand right now, to deal with a Gen Z person or deal with AI? Intuition.
Very interesting question. Would I give it to a Gen Z person or will I give it to AI? If it is research, I will give it to AI. If it is trend spotting, I will give it to the Gen Z person.
So you have the patience to deal with the Gen Z person.
A 21-year-old son, Sandeep.
I told you I knew the answers. Bhavi, over to you.
Yeah. So, since we are already talking about Gen Z and AI, I would actually want to ask that what's one way you have seen younger professionals influence or even change the way seniors think today after AI?
The person who literally taught me how to use ChatGPT and who forced me to get onto the paid module of ChatGPT was my now 21-year-old son, but then he was 19. Okay.
Fair.
Just a few weeks back, he noticed I was working on a project and he immediately showed me some more advanced modules within ChatGPT, which could make my work even faster. Right? Not only this, it's not just AI. Okay. I think this was, I'm not able to count how many years ago, but I think he was in grade 11. He one day comes to me and says, I've just started the school year. Can you get my 5 notebooks PDF'd? I'm not going to use notebooks any longer. I'm going paperless. Okay. And I was very fascinated. Right. And then once I got the PDF done, I said, why don't you show me what you've done? Because I'm fascinated. Right. So the way he'd structured his folders, how he was taking notes, how he was keeping them, I said, look, I want to do this. And his first reaction, of course, was that you're on iOS and I'm on Android. We can't deploy the same, tools. But he helped me. He helped me do it, and he helped possibly many other people to do it. Now, I'm being objective as a mother, but I do think he's quite advanced on the, tech side. But having said that, I think it's about knowing what the Gen Zs can teach you about technology. He may not be able to do my job just because he's taught me the tools, but he's definitely teaching me how to be faster at it, how to even perhaps be better at it then.
Yeah. Shubhangi, over to you.
I think since we're talking about AI, I think another question is, of course, the ethical use of AI and, does it introduce biases that we may overlook or would not have otherwise incorporated? So in your work, right, for example, a campaign, how do you avoid the algorithmic bias?
Common sense. Okay. I very often have this conversation, at least with my AI, to say, don't hallucinate. Please ensure that you're basing this research on facts, because I'm going to ask you for links later on. So that's one part. That's just research. Okay. Second is any output that is coming out of the AI. I think you have to use your curation skill. You can't leave your brain on the side, right? You have to
Right.
use your own curation skill to see whether this makes sense. And third is that's where great organizations are great. There's methodology, there's process. No one person decides what goes out.
Mm,
There may be a legal review, there may be a compliance review, there may be multiple set of people who will look at it. There is experience that you have over the years to know that this makes sense to do the job for the organization.
If I add on to what Deepali said, when we accuse AI, and I've seen 35-year-olds saying AI can't do this and AI can't do this, and you think that the bias is only in AI and not in human beings? For the same positions in US, the women get paid, I think, 15% lesser at an average in US, which is supposed to be the developed world and everything. So there is a bias which human beings also have. There is errors which human beings also do. So it's not that AI would do this. AI does it, at least there is a process which it does. The bias is coming because the bias is coming from the human being. Then you can't remove the bias from human beings almost ever, unfortunately.
Let me just tell you something interesting, which is this whole thing of looking at data and saying half glass empty versus half glass full. You would have heard of that famous story. Somebody went to Africa and said that, look, nobody wears shoes there. What am I going to sell? There cannot be a sale. Somebody else who said, nobody wears shoes there. What a great opportunity, right? So I think keeping that in mind, let me just tell you out of the world of insurance, since I used to work for insurance. Okay. Red cars are higher risk. The premium may be $50 more. So, I don't know if this is data, if there's bias.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she can decide. She's in the right place to decide.
I mean, that doesn't mean that every red car is going to have more accidents. No.
right.
But, there's
On average.
whatever coincidence, there's been a history.
Mm-hmm.
So all these, sorry, I'm taking the next question. All these changes which are happening from people like them aspiring to be marketers, what are the things which are changing so quickly, and how do you see them transcending? What does the marketer now today need to learn, which they didn't need to learn 10 years back? What would the new age marketer look like?
I think two things are different today. One is when you're doing goal setting for the brand, for a campaign, or for the company, you have to be extremely flexible in changing your plans and goals because things are changing at a very fast pace. Interestingly, we do annual planning, we get annual budgets, but sometimes, into the year, within 2 quarters, things change dramatically and the plans have to change. So agility of that's one of the things I mentioned in the learning quotient, framework also. Now, how frustrated are you going to be with this change decides the growth mindset that you have.
Okay.
So if you are mentally prepared to embrace change instead of being frustrated with it, you're going to grow faster, you're going to do better. I think that's one thing. Second, your desire and ability to learn new things, and therefore making an exception to find time to learn new things is going to make a difference to your long term career. You need to be over indexed on learning new things.
This is the third profound thought of the day. Yeah. So over to you, Shubhangi.
So you often mentor women leaders as well. So what do you think would be a structural change, not an individual one, that would most accelerate gender equity in Indian corporates?
So IBM, and I used to work for IBM. So IBM does a lot of work in this space and they publish studies, on this. I was co-author on one of the papers that they had done. One of the things is that the Indian ecosystem is not very different from the global ecosystem when it comes to gender inequity, so to speak. Second is inclusion is an issue everywhere, and inclusion not just of gender, but even of other variables that are there. So, given these two backgrounds, I think one of the most important things which people have highlighted is that there need to be more exposure for women leaders' lives, where younger women realize how they did it, and not just the famous ones, but the non famous ones also. I think setting that example and sharing those examples for even mid level women leaders, for the junior women leaders, is going to be important. So, that's number one. Number two is that statistically, we know that there are far few women leaders, women CEOs, women board members. That's a reality, right? So if you want a jump in this number and you don't want it to grow at the rate that it has been growing, then you need to look for male sponsorship. Women mentoring women, you will actually have far lesser women getting mentored. You need far more male mentors and far more male sponsors who need to get into the driver's seat for change to happen. Those are my two observations.
I think I completely 100% tell you on that. I have always found women to be better and more responsible workers than men. So men will love to stay late and work till 10 or 12, but especially when a woman gets married, maybe has a kid, finishes her work till 6:30 and goes home. And sometimes in the environment feels off about everybody every time leaving at 6:30 while other guys are working till 8:39. But the senior people have to take cognizance of it. And with Gen Z coming into thing and even millennials, I don't think they're very different from that. They want to leave on time. They want to have a life. You can't always say, look, you have to work till 12 every day. That is not going to happen. That's changing very, very quickly. Bhavi, would you want to go with another question?
Yes, I would actually want to ask, how did you come out of your comfort zone when you experienced in different industries, and how did that shape as a leader you are today?
That's a very long answer. Requires another podcast. So, I'm going to leave it at 2, 3 anecdotes. Okay. I studied in Government Girls College in Rajasthan, where for every 100 girls who started their graduation, only 50 passed out because the other 50 got married and stopped their education. Okay. When I started working back in 93, nobody knew anything about D&I. I hadn't even heard the term ever. The third thing was that I was one of the two first ever female management trainees that Tata Motors hired. That was my first job from campus. So I think right from when I was growing up, one knew that being a woman in a workspace is different. I knew that I cannot write my career in the same fashion that's written in the books or taught to us at college, because those models are meant for men. That is a realization that I did have. But I must also admit that we weren't like millennials and we weren't like Gen Zs. My generation of people didn't grow up with mobile phones, didn't even have mobile phones around when we started working. We did not have computers and laptops when we started working. I think my generation had to learn a lot. And I must also admit that we were a little bit more young and carefree in our minds when we started working. I will personally admit, and this I don't know if it's true for everyone, I will personally admit that I got far more serious about my career at about a 10-year career mark, I actually took the risks, phenomenal risks, in the first 10 years of my career because you just took them. And that did coincidentally then set up a pattern, for me to follow for the next 22 years.
That's a great insight. I would definitely say that navigating challenges with risk and where your core principles are still intact, that really drives where you are today.
Actually, taking from what you said, Dipali, don't you think a lot of employers, senior managers who are Gen Zs, treat them unfairly? Because at 21, 22, I was also as lost as a Gen Z is today. But we say, oh, they have to do this and they want to go home at 5, and they also ask about work from home. Can I log in from which is a new thing which COVID taught us. Don't you think some of that is very unfair on them?
No, no,
The
no.
senior
That's what
manager
I did.
saying it's very difficult. There are lots of conversations on how difficult it is to manage Gen Z employees, but people tend to forget when they were 21, 22, they were also as lost then, and they think when they're 35, they're very clued on and they're working very hard, while the other person doesn't care about the office who is 22.
So for others, but I will only share this with you that what helps me is looking at the team members that I have also from the lens of the consumer. You can't shape the consumer. You cannot have expectations from the consumer. Consumers will behave the way they want to, right?
Okay.
If they choose to be experimentative with your category, but choose to be conservative with some other category, you can't help it. You just have to discover it and then hopefully motivate the consumer in some manner to make a choice for your brand. I think that's the same. I mean, I do think that even with the millennials, there were different challenges. Okay. With Gen Zs, I wouldn't even call them challenges. It is the peculiarity of the generation. If we understand the peculiarity and if we have something to motivate them, then great. Okay.
Any last questions? I have one last question for Dipali. Any last questions from both of you? Shubhangi? Bhavi?
Yeah, maybe one question. Since you mentioned that you look at your employees from a consumer standpoint, right? Could you share an example maybe of an idea that you got from them or somewhere where it became a challenge, right? For example, they expect, or our generation does expect companies to take some sort of stance on social issues.
Okay. Once I reflect on your question, Shubhangi, there are two things that come through to me. One is that you're expecting challenges, whereas I'm not. My life experience has told me that there is a solution that can be found. That's one. Number two is I know that the popular narrative with podcasters, with YouTubers, with news channels is that corporate organizations are bad, governments are bad, politicians are bad, everybody is irresponsible. I have a turnaround question. Politicians are human beings. Corporate organizations are made up of human beings. Financial ecosystem is made up of human beings. The so-called communities who do not have civic sense, if you say so, are also made up of human beings. So I think somewhere the human race has to step up. And I do feel like, therefore, asking the question, are the Gen Zs willing to spend far more for ethical brands? Are they willing to take the long, more difficult way to a goal? And I think those are the answers that the generations need to ask, themselves. I can't speak for others once again. I will only say this, that I think I can speak only for myself and how I've conducted myself. Maybe when I was younger, I did not know as much of the truth as I know today. I know that in the last 10 or 15 years, the conversation has changed for the good. Whether it has the speed that it ought to have, I don't know. I learned no to plastic in the last 15, 20 years. I did not know that 30 years ago. So we merely used plastic earlier. I came to know that my irresponsible spending is adding to the landfills when it comes to clothes. The moment I came to know, I became more responsible. So I think the journey to climate change, the journey to ethics, the journey to being better human beings, the journey to spirituality, the journey to the kind of leadership that I've spoken about, is a journey. I wasn't born like that. I'm shaped by what I'm learning. I'm shaped by my experiences. I'm shaped by what I'm focusing to find out more when I read about a narrative. And I'm hoping that the younger generations learn more and practice whatever are the right things to do for in their generation for the future generations to come.
Great words. Only thing is that the monies are controlled by the older generation and not by the younger generation.
Yes and no. I think the younger generations are great influencers. I must also admit, Sandeep, and I don't know if you will agree with me. I think the consciousness of what is the kind of world we will leave behind became much higher after I became a mother. That did happen.
True.
Okay. So I think which is what I said, I learned. So that consciousness of what kind of a world are we going to leave behind for our children did come to me only after I became a mother. So Shubhangi, I don't know what is your reaction to that. I would love to hear your reaction to my answer.
So I think you answered it in multiple steps. The first of which was being actually understanding whether when Gen Z says they want something, are they putting their money where the mouth is, right? And yeah, there have been a lot of studies. Both sides of the argument have been presented, and I think we're yet to reach a conclusion on what's happening. The second is personal awareness. I think that will go a long way in helping solve problems.
Very well put, very well summarized.
Thank you.
Just to add to more confusion, there are three Indias. There is India 1, in which all of us are coming. There's India 2 and there's India 3. So what you're saying, social causes and things are limited only to India 1. India 2 Gen Z is different. India 3 Gen Z is hard pressed to get anything. So if you have scarcity, then you're not looking at what climate change is going to do to me. So does change the outlook. So a lot of this is coming out of the country that you're currently in, which is Switzerland, which doesn't let anybody get a citizenship who's not from there. So last question, a bit of advice from you. Till yesterday, I did not know that you started a podcast 2 years back. So what advice would you have for us? How to do a branded podcast better? What should one be doing and what should one not be doing?
Be honest with the content that you want to put out. Don't worry whether one person listens to it or 1 lakh. If you can make a difference to one person's life with your content, I think that should be more important. So be original and genuinely talk about what you believe in. I think that's extremely important. I built a great podcast. I've stopped doing it because I don't have the time. I think my biggest moment of happiness have been when anonymous, unknown people have reached out to me and asked me, when is your next episode coming? When somebody's told me that they recommended my podcast to somebody because that person was aspiring from CXO to become a CEO. So I think that'd be my advice for the podcast.
Thank you so much for your time. It was great talking to you. Thank you, Shubhangi. Thank you, Bhavi. Any last words, Deepali?
Thank you to all of you. Thank you for having me here. It was very refreshing to talk to the three of you. And I think this is a very interesting format, Sandeep, where you have two young students also adding to the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you
great
for your
weekend.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.